Hopefully most people can see it. And John, as you're going through, you know, if you still can't see it, again, like I said, I'll be able to forward you the presentation. But
Right.
but hopefully it'll work at some point. Yeah, unfortunately I'm not as technologically savvy as it may seem. I don't know if that's even true. But okay, so I apologize for not being able to suggest other options. But hopefully at least we'll be able to share this information following the presentation. Okay, pardon me. All right, so what I think we should do, I've gone ahead and started recording, and I'd like to just go around the phone lines here. And so for those of you who are muted, if you want to maybe take yourself off of mute for a minute to introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of willy-nilly throughout this. I'll go ahead and start, and most of you probably know who I am, but I'll tell you a little bit more, and then we'll go through the rest of the folks on the call. So my name is Hattie Quick. I'm a research study assistant at the University of Washington. I work with April Sather here at the WRT team, is what we call ourselves, Wraparound Evaluation and Research Team. And we have been working for the last couple of months, obviously, on getting WrapTrack up and running and replacing old wonders. And we're very excited to have this first week of trainings go as smoothly as they've been going. So we're super excited, and thanks for joining us today. All right, and anyone else can just pipe right in.
I'm John Royce.
Go ahead.
I work for the Children and Families Behavioral Health Network, and then we recently received from the state the population of drug and alcohol abuse, as well as the developmentally and intellectually deficit abuse.
Okay, great. Thank you, John.
This is Janice Johnson with the Kentucky Division of Behavioral Health.
This is Mark Hart with the Kentucky Division of Behavioral Health.
Pam Stenelson with Bluegrass Impact in Kentucky.
Susan Robinson and Lisa Gregory are here from the North Key region in Kentucky.
Missy Jones and Eric Annell from Lake Cumberland and Donson.
Renee
Dan Hemlock and Gene Bush from Impact West.
Renee Roberts and Joanne Hurt, Kentucky River.
Andrea Miller, Kentucky Salt River.
Linda McLean from Gateway.
Okay, great. Anybody else that didn't get to introduce themselves? I think I got everybody's name written down, but all right. And I know that was sort of like a free-for-all there, but
yeah, it kind of was, but that's fun.
Yeah, that's always a fun time. But thank you guys for bearing with me through that. And basically, what I want to do is show you our agenda here on the screen of the purpose of the training today. And it's really to get you guys introduced to WrapTrack, how it works, talk about logins and passwords. And Mark, I know that was something that we had communicated about in an email, so I'll be kind of going over those details a little bit more thoroughly when we get to those slides. So if anybody does have a question about that, type in. Additionally, we're going to be going over some testing of your data that was mapped over from Wonders to WrapTrack, and we'll go through what that really looks like or what that means. And basically, April and I have done some pretty extensive testing, so far, and we're really satisfied with the way that the data had been mapped over. However, we do think that communities really know their data the best, and we think it'd be helpful for you guys to just do a little bit of that, take a look at it before you really get heavily into enrolling new youth and data entry. But we'll talk about the specifics of that a little bit later on in the presentation. We're also going to be talking about youth enrollment, data entry, reports, exports, etc. And then we'll also get into the system online and actually play around in it a little bit. And I'll show you how we enter a youth in, etc., and the process of where you would locate the forms. So And we'll go through that for the Wi-Fi and the TOM and the Wi-Fi EZ. So we'll look at all of those things. All right. Let's see. I just noticed, I'm going to pause for 1 second. I just noticed that we have someone that made a comment about their speakers not being able to work. Let me just let me hold on for 1 second, everyone, and answer that. Oh, okay. Maybe Mark is doing that. You can dial in if needed. Okay, all right. All right. So we might have an issue where folks might not be able to hear someone that just joined, but they can hear us. So hopefully everything's okay. If there is an issue where anyone feels like they're not being able to communicate via the phone line, this option on the GoToMeeting screen where you just type into the chat box is certainly fine and appropriate. And I have that open, so hopefully I'll glance over there every now and again and check to make sure that folks have any questions or concerns. You can address them there as well. Alrighty, so moving forward, we want to draw your attention to some of the system requirements for WrapTrack on your computers. And what we've noticed is that the most up-to-date operating system, and an example of that is obviously Windows 7 is the most recent, and then the most up-to-date Internet browser, Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, Mozilla, whatever is appropriate, would be the ideal. However, we've also recommended that Google Chrome might optimize your experience. We actually were doing a training 2 days ago and tried to get into Internet Explorer with it, and it's for some reason just the visual experience is just not as nice as it is in Google Chrome. So there's a little link down here at the bottom if you would like to download that onto your computer if you haven't already gotten that on there. So we recommend using that. So if anybody has any questions about that or issues or concerns, you can always contact us and we can help walk through whatever you might need to maximize your experience using WrapTrack. So another thing to note on this slide is some email addresses that you're going to want to add to your safe senders list. Obviously the first one is WrapEval, and that is us at the University of Washington. So that probably is already going to be added to your safe senders list, but the other two are connected to WrapTrack, and you'll note that there also is WrapTMS in here, and we'll talk a little bit about why that is in a minute. We'll look at some slides where that becomes more relevant, but just if you could add these two to your safe senders list, that'd be great, because if you've forgotten your password for whatever reason, there's a little forgot password link, and you would select that and then receive an email from one of these two addresses, these no reply addresses. So that's going to be important to remember. All right. So WrapTrack, here we go. As I mentioned before, we have the Wi-Fi 4, the TOM, and the Wi-Fi EZ in WrapTrack. And the Wi-Fi EZ, as you can see there, is a brief new measure that we have, and it is a self-report version, whereas the Wi-Fi 4 is obviously done via interview. And we're working on getting the links system sort of figured out with our programmers for the Wi-Fi EZ. For example, if a caregiver wanted to complete the Wi-Fi EZ, if that was something that your community wanted to start using, we would like for a facilitator to be able to go into WrapTrack, access some certain link, and send it to the caregiver, or if the caregiver doesn't necessarily have their own computer access, for the caregiver to be able to come into the office or to meet with the facilitator and to use the computer that way. Now, if none of those seem like doable options, we're also going to be certainly comfortable with folks still using a paper version or a hard copy version, handing it to the caregiver for them to complete it, and then for a facilitator or someone who might be designated to enter that data in your community to enter that into WrapTrack. So those are the three kind of different options for the WIFI Easy. And if anybody is interested in maybe transitioning or using it in conjunction with the WIFI 4, some communities have started to talk about doing that as well, where you'll have some families that will get the WIFI 4 and some that will get the WIFI Easy. You know, there are a lot of different opportunities for that, so we can talk about what that would look like if anyone is interested. All right. So moving on, here's where we're going to talk a little bit about why you will hear the words TMS, WrapTMS, as we mention WrapTrack. So as you can see here on the slide, WrapTMS is a comprehensive web-based, cloud-based system for data collection, management, and feedback. And it's really designed for the whole wraparound process in mind, not just this fidelity collection piece that we're going to be talking about today. So as you see some of the screenshots that I'll be showing in the presentation, and as we get into the actual demo, you'll see that TMS is sort of as a header across all of the pages of WrapTrack. So that's just something to note. And again, here's a little bit more about what WrapTMS provides. Obviously, there's plans of care that you are going to be you would be documenting in TMS. You can track the history, meeting appointments, notes. Obviously, again, satisfaction and fidelity and outcomes are a piece of that, and a lot of that is connected toward WrapTrack is what we're going to be talking about today. But TMS has these other functions as well. Additionally, there's dashboard design is the other thing I actually wanted to talk about, and you'll see what that really means as we get into, again, the demo. But basically, we just wanted to put some of these slides in here for you all to learn a little bit about what WrapTMS is if you haven't already heard about it. And again, if you're interested in WrapTMS, which is different than WrapTrack, however, they will work in unison if your community was interested in using both. The youth files transfer over. So if you are interested in WrapTMS, that is certainly an option for you all. And if you would like to just learn a little bit more about it, you can request a 30-day free demo. And this is what the information on this slide is saying. And basically, if anyone can't see that slide, it's just saying you can email rapeval@uw.edu for more information. And more likely than not, it will be me who will get you connected to the 30-day free demo of WrapTMS. So that's another option for you guys. All right. Excuse me. So this next slide actually shows us the home screen, or login screen rather, for WrapTMS and for WrapTrack both. So it looks identical. You'll have your username, your password, and then obviously you can see down below there's a little forgot password link, and that's what I was referring to. If you selected that because you forgot your password for whatever reason, the no reply email address would send you what your password is. Now, these are important things to note because as we get to the next slide, I'm going to be talking about a little bit of a change in the password system compared to Wonders. But before we do that, the final piece that I want to point out is at the very top, and so this is slide 10 for everyone's reference. At the very top is the link to how to access WrapTrack. So that's going to be important as you get into the system after the presentation, if you're doing that today or tomorrow or next week, whenever that is. That's the link that you're going to use to log in. Okay, so let's get into that password conversation. So basically what you need to know is that your passwords that you had in Wonders will work to get you into WrapTrack. But moving forward, we are encouraging, actually not necessarily encouraging, it's a requirement of the system that the next time you have to edit or update your password, which will be 60 days from when you log in initially, you will need to make it HIPAA or FERPA compliant. So there is a certain amount of characters that you have to have, an uppercase letter, a number in there, those type of passwords that really don't make any sense and are just kind of jumbled. That's sort of what we're looking for. That's kind of what you're going to need to have. So please keep that in mind moving forward. Like we said, your Wonders passwords will work to get you into WrapTrack initially, but within 60 days, you're going to be required to change that. And additionally, that's going to happen every 60 days. So that's another new point to make about passwords. If anyone, for whatever reason, has an issue logging in and they're using their Wonders password, you'll want to contact us immediately and we'll just help you walk through whatever the problem might be. So that's something to note. But again, the maintenance of passwords now in WrapTrack has certainly changed, and it's now going to be on each individual user to know their password, to keep track of it, to update it regularly, because April and I no longer have the ability to know what your passwords are. So you can't email WrapEval and say, I've forgotten my password, please send it to me. We won't know what it is. So we can probably help to get you connected if need be, but we won't be able to provide you with that password. And I do see here how much of a variation must the passwords be was a question that came up. And again, the passwords will need to be at least 6 characters in length, and they'll probably need to have an uppercase letter, a symbol, a number, etc. So they're probably, you can't use Wrap Team 123 anymore or something like that. That will not work. But again, this is not right away. This is 60 days after you log in for the first time is when you'll need to change it. Okay, a couple of other things. You can't reuse passwords. That's not an ability anymore. There's a history of your previously used passwords. And what else should I point out here? Yes, if you, for whatever reason, have attempted to log in and have incorrectly logged in multiple times using the invalid login, you will be disabled. Your ID will be disabled. We believe it's after 6 or 7 times, and so that's something important to note as well. And at that point, you would have to contact Word to say, I can no longer log in because I used an invalid login, 6 or 7 times or whatever it is, and my ID is now disabled. So we would help you with that. But okay, so those are important things to note about passwords and the differences between Wonders and WrapTrack. Now, do folks have any questions about that? Okay, great. All right, so moving forward, one of the other things that we want to talk about that's going to look a little bit different in WrapTrack versus Wonders would be your permissions. And you might recall that in Wonders we sort of had these levels 1 through 5, and they kind of all did different things, and people became certain levels based on what seemed appropriate in their role in their community. Now, in WrapTrack, there are these different types of levels, and some of them are sort of mimicked across. Obviously, you can see, in general, the sort of top level will be Wirt still, so will be April and myself, and then from there, we'll continue to have your local heads be the next highest level, etc. The difference really being that these program supervisory admins, team members, if you wanted your community to all have the same type of permissions for those folks, that is certainly possible. WrapTrack really allows for some customization for your group. So we can talk about what that means, or it might be up to your local heads to really figure that out and work with April and myself in terms of getting that set up. Now, I will want to reiterate here that whatever the kind of levels were set up in Wonders, so whatever was here, did transfer to WrapTrack into the appropriate designations here. Now, again, this is just if you want to change any of those, we can do that for you and help you get that worked out. But you probably will either stick with what you have because that's been working, or you will kind of change it and probably change it one time and that's sort of it. So the permissions are something that we want to kind of get worked out and determined fairly quickly once you get into WrapTrack. But then once they're there, you probably won't have to think about them too much more. So, all right. One of the things we also want to point out would be this configuration slide here, excuse me. And these are just examples of how some communities might set things up. So for example, you can see again, we're sort of always at the top here, and what we call sort of like a design admin. And then you might have your agency heads or your state admin heads or evaluators in that configuration head or jurisdictional admin roles. So these are just sort of different examples. And then program supervisory admins or team members even might be your facilitators, your supervisors, data entry folks. So it's really up to you guys how you want that to look. But again, probably most folks won't have to worry about this. It'll really be your local heads that will want to communicate back to April and myself at some point just to make sure that you're all set up in the appropriate way. All right. So any questions about that? We're going to go ahead and move on to some screenshots of what the actual site looks like. Okay, great. All right. Pardon me again, sorry. So this is your home page. So as soon as you enter your username and password into that login portal page, this is what pops up. And so you'll note that sort of at the top here is where you still see TMS. Again, this will be familiar throughout the system, but you'll see WrapTrack down here below that, and that's how you'll know that you're obviously in the right place as you're moving forward. You'll also see that this is where you would note that you're the person logged in, and your group here would be sort of just following your name. Additionally, the change password link here is something that, again, let's say you log in tomorrow and decide, instead of worrying from now into 60 days from now, I'm just going to go ahead and change my password and make it HIPAA and FERPA compliant, so I don't forget to do that, or don't change it in time. So you might just want to go ahead and click that right then and make that change. That's entirely up to you. Additionally, there's a settings button here. You probably won't have to use this too often, so I would not really even worry about it. Basically, the main thing is to go in here and see where your youth records are, and some additional quick links. Now, I want to draw your attention to this My Reminders box. This is something that is actually, again, here because it's a part of WrapTMS, not necessarily because it's relevant to WrapTrack. So what we have been telling folks is you can either just leave it alone, ignore it entirely, or you can even close it. There are these little tabs here, and I don't know if folks can see them clearly, but there's like an X box to just get rid of that entire little section. So you can just ignore it or get rid of it. It won't be relevant for your work. One thing, though, that I will point out are the quick links under on the left-hand side here, and it says you can add a new youth record or find a youth record. That's going to be one of the ways that you're going to enroll youth or add your WIFI or TOM forms for each youth. And then additionally below, you'll see configuration setup. This is really going to be, again, for those local heads. So most people are going to ignore this, but I did want to just make sure that certain folks saw that, because some people will have this ability to, add additional subsites, update users, add, additional non-users, which might be folks that are not really part of wraparound teams in the sense that they're not a facilitator, but they might be, a clergy member or something like that. So, you might be wanting to track some folks in that way. And then finally, I want to draw your attention to the menu button outlined in red here. And the next slide is going to show you what that looks like when you click the menu button. So let's go there. All right, so you'll note that we have a kind of time and date stamp here, essentially, is what that is. And that's going to be helpful for some of the things a little bit further down the line here. So we'll draw your attention to where that comes into play. Additionally, you have a Home tab. So you would click on here if you are deep into a youth file and you've saved it and you just want to go back to that home screen where we just were. You click there. Additionally, youth enrollment. And then WrapTrack, which is your reports and your export feature. So that's what we're gonna click on this to get to those sections, and obviously we'll do that in the demo. And then additionally, Admin tab. And again, you can see this is not going to be relevant to all users. So most folks are really going to ignore this thing here because it's not even going to show up in your list under menu. So, all right. So once you get in, and you've enrolled a youth or a youth is already in there and you're looking for that youth and want to make an edit to something that's in their file, you would see a screen that looks like this, and it says, youth at the top, and then demographics, WrapTrack, also assessments. There's an assessments tab, and we'll get into that a little bit in a minute, but that's where your WIFI and your TOM and your WIFI EZ, if that's something that you are interested in moving toward, would be located in the assessments tab. So a youth page really has the youth tab and the assessments tab. And then within the youth tab, there's your demographics information. And what is entered in here is essentially off the WIFI demo form. So that's what would be located here. And then your assessments, again, you click on that, and that's where you're going to enter the WIFI for caregiver, facilitator, youth, team member, TOM forms as well. All right, but one thing I will draw your attention to, and we'll get into more detail about this, is the enrollment button at the bottom. And this is where you're going to make sure that once you enter a youth's information, they need to actually be enrolled. So it will say pending in this section right above it. I don't know if that's such fine print, so I'm not sure if everyone can see that, but it does say enrollment status, and then it says enrolled on this day for 880 days, which is a long time, but that's for that example. And if you shift over to the right, the lower right-hand corner, you'll note that once you were to click on that enrollment green button, this pop-up box will show up, and it actually has this youth was pending initially and then became enrolled. And so in order to make sure that you change the status from pending to enrolled, this is how you would do it. So you would click on Add Enrollment Status, and this is how you do that information. Additionally, you can see in a little note here that if you wanted to start tracking discharge date, that's an option as well. So if you know that you've been working with a youth and you've been working with them for a year or so, or however long it may be, and they've recently discharged from services, you can go back in here, add enrollment status after you've hit the enrollment button for this youth, and go ahead and make them discharged in the system. And you can even put a date connected to that and a reason why they were discharged. So that might be something that you want to start tracking here. It was slightly relevant in Wonders, but it wasn't very useful, wasn't very user-friendly, so it was really challenging for folks to do that. So this might be something now in WrapTrack that you might want to start doing. Okay. Then let's just take a quick look at what your WIFI data entry is going to look like. So again, draw your attention to the part where there's the Youth tab and the Assessments tab. So if you're in for an individual youth, you're going to go ahead and click your Assessments tab, and then you'll see your forms. And so here is WIFI and caregiver forms. You can edit them. Certain folks will have permissions to edit and delete. Some people will only have permissions to go ahead and add and not make any edits or delete folks or what have you. So that'll be important to note. And then basically the forms look obviously visually different, but the same as they were in Wonders, and the same as they are on the hard copies. So this is all going to seem very, very easy to navigate through because it's all very similar to what you were experiencing before. So that's fairly straightforward. And let's go ahead and just take a quick look at the reports here. And one thing that I want to note is it's set up a little bit differently in WrapTrack than it was in Wonders. So in Wonders, if you wanted to pull a report, you would click on a certain number of qualifications, and then you would have all 15 or however many reports it was pulled up. and you could see those that way. This is a little bit different in the sense that you'll click on a link first for the report that you're looking for, and then add your qualifications in. You can also save those qualifications throughout, though. So if you want to, pull only the top 3 reports, for example, report 1, 2, and 3, you would add your qualifications when you're pulling for report 1, and then they would remain the same for 2 and 3 if that's what you wanted. We'll get into that in a little bit more detail once we get into the demo, but I just wanted to point that out. And additionally, this is just a screenshot, real quick screenshot of sort of what some of the reports are looking like. We've made a few new and improved updates to some of the graphs and things. So we'll get into that in a little bit more detail in the demo. I am going to pause for 1 second, though, because April Sather has just joined us. So I'm going to see if, do you want me to take it and put it on? Okay. I think we're good, but yeah. Thanks, April. Okay. All right. Sorry, guys, for that delay for 1 second, but I just want to make sure and check in. All right, so let's just look at the export slide for very quickly. So this is going to be very different than your experience in Wonders, and this is how you're going to pull single use or multiple use. You're going to select whatever form you want to pull, and then there's a little bit more of an option in terms of filtering data. It then looks like this when you export it into Excel, and again, we're going to actually do this in the demo, so I'm going to just kind of get quickly moving on here so that we can get to that section. Same for Tom, looks the same. It's going to be in your assessments. It's sort of set up the same structure. The difference really here for the Tom being, if anyone does use the Tom, that instead of it being on one page where you've got to scroll through all 20 things, it's now separated into certain parts. And there are 2 items on each tab here. So it's a little bit easier to navigate, a little bit cleaner. So that's something to note. And same with Tom reports. Again, you click on it, then you put your qualifiers in, and date range, whatever it may be, and you'll get your report generated. And again, I'll show you a little bit more detail soon enough. Actually, right now, that's the next thing we're going to do. Okay, so before I log in, does anybody have questions or concerns about that? Excuse me.
I do. This is Debbie Frost and Mike Taylor, Bluegrass Impact East, and we missed the first 35 minutes because we were at a bomb. We had to evacuate.
Yes, I am so sorry to hear that. Yeah, we were informed about that information, and I apologize. I will say, though, that Debbie and Mike, that we recorded this session, so we will be able to send you a link of the recorded information afterward. So if you want to catch up on the first half an hour, you should be able to do that. But a lot of it was, introductions and getting folks organized, so you haven't missed too much.
Okay, let me ask, if I can, a real quick question. Are we be able to print a manual like we did with the
yes.
When I can't think of what the name of it is. We're all
the Wonder system?
Yes, thank you.
Sure. So I was communicating a little bit with Mark earlier today, and we are actually just kind of still finalizing those manuals a little bit, but we will be, as soon as they are final, we're going to be making sure that you guys all have access to them. It's just a little bit of an overhaul because we had to basically start from scratch. So we're just trying to kind of get all the last details in there, and we're hoping maybe we can even get those out to folks next week. So in between now and then, when those are complete, I would encourage folks to look back to this recording if that might be helpful. Additionally, I'm going to go ahead and send this PowerPoint on so that you have that as well if you just want to use the PowerPoint and some other materials. So, and obviously you can always contact us with any questions or concerns until, even beyond once you have the manuals, obviously, but if that's helpful until the manuals are released. But yes, you will be getting them shortly.
Okay, and it's very small on my screen. Is that what everybody else has got?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that there are some limitations with visually how this looks, and I do apologize. I learned that yesterday when we were doing another training, and folks were having a hard time seeing it. So I'll try to, as much as I can, actually say what's there instead of just assuming that everyone can see it, because it is small print. All right. Any other thoughts or questions as we move forward here? Okay, now you can see I have a login already here, but I'm going to try one that is a test, and we were trying to use this yesterday, but it didn't work. So let's see. Darn, nope. Okay. So, let's refresh this. Oh, I do not want to do that. Okay, well, bear with me for 1 second. I did not think that this was going to come up. Okay, well, that was weird. We're just going to go ahead and use this login that's already there. So this is where you'd insert your username and password. And again, if you can't see it, here's a forgot password link, and that's what you're going to select if for whatever reason you've forgotten it. Because again, and for those folks that joined us not that long ago, I will reiterate again about passwords that April and I no longer have the ability to tell you what your passwords are. So if you're contacting the WRAP eval email address or the work team, we will not be able to provide you with your password. But for whatever reason, if you can't log in, or if you're having problems, or if you've accidentally entered the invalid password multiple times, 6 or 7 tries, I think is the actual number, and you can't log in anymore because, quote-unquote, you've become a disabled user, it actually locks you out of the system, you can contact us for those types of things. But you'll have to be really responsible about managing all these passwords, because you'll have to change them every 60 days. And it is quite a more complex system than it was in Wonders, where you could keep it for years and never worry about it. But this is all HIPAA and FERPA compliant. So that's the difference now with the password. So, but you can always click on the Forgot Password link. I'm going to go ahead and hit Login. Wow, this is strange. Okay, you know what? Let me try one thing. That's not really supposed to be happening, so I'm a little bit concerned. This is different than we were experiencing the other day. All right. All right, so, okay, well, hopefully now it will let me log in. Sorry, guys, for this delay, but I just want to make sure now I write that password down, because I have to use that. Perfect, great. So that was a bit weird, and hopefully that won't be an issue, the first time you guys log in. But if it is, obviously it pops up with this indicator that says, please change your password, and it should be as simple as that. But again, questions or concerns, the first couple times when you're getting used to the system, just reach out and let us know.
How do we get our password and stuff?
Is this Debbie?
Debbie, yeah.
Yeah, so we had mentioned in the beginning that you will be able to use your old Wonders password to log in initially. So you want to make sure to locate that information, use that to initially get into WrapTrack. It should be good for 60 days because every 60 days it requires you to change your password. But if you have any issues with that, like if a screen similar to what you might have just seen popped up, it said you need to change your password or update your password, you can just do it at that moment and then document that you've changed your password. But go ahead and use your old Wonders information to log in initially.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, so this is sort of what this looks like, and I've already for this section, I've gotten rid of that my reminders thing and totally removed it. But you can see here, like I think this button, yeah, you can make the youth records thing a little bit larger if that's your main focus for your dashboard. And again, this is why we were talking a little bit about WrapTMS and how TMS is a dashboard system. But there are a couple features that I want to draw your attention to. It's add items, change settings. These are things that I wouldn't necessarily recommend using if you would like to really play around with this and customize your individual dashboard or home screen. You can do that, but I don't think it's really necessary to play around with it, but you're more than welcome to. But additionally, here again is where it says who's logged in. Here's another change password ability and the settings feature if you need to play around with that. But let's go ahead and I want to show you a current record and sort of where things are, and then I want to go ahead and enter a test record, and then we'll pull some reports and look at the export features. Okay, so for this particular group or organization, and actually we're even trying to use the word configuration moving forward because that's what our programmers have started using. So, Kentucky, Wrap Kentucky is a configuration, for example. So moving forward, we're going to try to start using that language, but it's hard to change over sometimes. So for this configuration, I'm just going to click ahead, and they actually did use IDs only instead of names in Wonders, and that's obviously what transferred over because everything was mapped from Wonders to WrapTrack exactly as you had it. But if you want to continue to use names, obviously that's certainly appropriate, or IDs if you're only using IDs. It's really up to your individual community or configuration in terms of how you would like to do that. You can even leave out date of birth if that's something that you prefer not to include. But again, I will reiterate that this new system is HIPAA-FERPA compliant, so you shouldn't have any concerns with that. All right, so I just randomly selected one of the IDs, and this is what a youth page looks like, essentially. And we talked about this a little bit when we were doing the PowerPoint, that you have your youth tab, you have your assessments tab. And those are really your two things here when you're looking at a youth ID page. And then within the youth page, you have your demographics tab and a WrapTrack tab. And I'll talk about what those are. But essentially, these two tabs, demographics and WrapTrack, are what you're going to get off of the WIFI demo form. So that's where this information is being kind of pulled from, essentially. So you would pull out your demo form, enroll a youth, get them all set up where they have this this information, and I'll walk you through exactly how to do that if you're adding a new youth. You'd hit the enrollment, make sure that they're enrolled, actually enrolled here, not pending, and then you'd go ahead and hit your assessments. But let's focus on this page for just one more second. So obviously, again, you can put your names in or just IDs. It's up to you all. There's information that is required, and if you don't want to track date of birth, for example, you can just put all zeros throughout, but you would need to put something there because you can see these red asterisks mean that that's a required field. Additionally, you can select some other information if that's something that you want to track, phone numbers, address, that type of thing. One thing I do want to draw your attention to are the 3 different IDs or case number fields that you can add in here. Now, case number is one of them. If you have an additional ID that you'd like to track and you'd like to do it in WrapTrack, you can certainly add that here. If you keep a record of Medicaid numbers, you can add that. But these are not fields that you need to complete or fill out, and it will not affect anything that you enter into WrapTrack, obviously, for the purposes of your fidelity reporting. But Wrap ID is going to be a field that you will need to enter. And the Wrap ID, I just want to make sure everyone understands that. And you can see when you hover over it, is actually the Youth and Family ID from Wonders. So that identification number that you used in Wonders is now called a Wrap ID. And if you ever forget, you just hover over, and it just reminds you like that. So that transferred over again from Wonders, but moving forward as you enroll new youth, you'll want to make sure that that's the ID number that you're putting into the Wrap ID field. And again, you can leave these blank if you'd like, or you can add them, whatever makes sense. All right, so now I want to draw your attention to this gray box here. This is a fun new feature because this is where that date timestamp from the menu, so when you click on menu and you see, okay, it's tracking us, it's the 14th, it's, this time for Pacific time zone. It will actually keep track of sort of that information on your youth page. So I know, for example, like if I was a supervisor and I was logging in to look at, ID 738, I could see that Erica had entered this on this day, and that the most recent time it was edited was actually on the same day. But if we made any changes to this particular file, we could actually see that the last edited on date would change to today's date. So that's just some nice new features that Wonders didn't have. And then finally, before we move forward, is this next section that says primary caregiver, for those who may not be able to see it, enrollment status, and facilitator. And these sections you can see, you can't actually enter anything here. This is all generated by what you enter in other places. So, for example, the primary caregiver will be populated if you enter a caregiver wiki and you include their name. So for this particular configuration, again, they don't use names, so that caregiver field is blank, and that's why there's no caregiver name there. But for the facilitator, they actually completed a facilitator form, and they entered the name of Sally. You could, again, not include that information if that's not important to you or what have you. And then additionally, I'll just draw your attention to the enrollment status. That's basically that information, again, from the enrollment button. And I'm just going to click on it because I want you guys to see, okay, for example, this youth was initially added to the system on February 1st. And they were pending, again, because when you put someone in the system for the first time, they're pending until you update their enrollment status or add their enrollment status to enrolled. Now, obviously you can see that that was literally done just one day after. If you need to edit this, again, not everyone's going to have the ability to do so, but some of those local heads will be able to do that. If you have that permission, you can hit edit. And if you wanted to change that date for whatever reason, or even change the organization, you could do so there. That also occurs at enrollment status. So like if you were to put in the start date and you were to select enrolled, that's where you also select, again, the actual organization or configuration, because obviously some folks, Kentucky being one, has subsites. So your subsites would be listed here. And then additionally, I'll draw your attention to, for example, the discharge. If you wanted to start recording that information or keeping track of it in WrapTrack, you would select that. You could do the date, and then you could select the reason. And these reasons are sort of generic, but you have that information. Youth moved out of service area is one of them, for example. So you can start to keep track of that information. I'm going to cancel out of this because I do not want to make any changes to this youth file. But that's how you would do that. And then finally, I'm going to click on this, and then we'll pause for questions before we move to the assessments. But if you click on the WrapTrack tab, this is where that a few other questions about school information that will be on your Wi-Fi demo form, this is where that data gets entered. So for example, has the youth been in school any time in the last 30 days? The checkbox here is yes. And then it asks which grade is the school now in or will be in for the new school year, and then the drop-down menu is there, and you can select the appropriate thing. Now, if this had been no, the actual next section pops up. So then you say, no, not in school. Okay, well, why was this youth not in school? And then it gives you the option to select the reason behind that. So you'll note that, and I'm going to go ahead and make that change, but you'll note that throughout WrapTrack that those types of things are populated in that way. Like certain questions won't be visible to you if you haven't selected the the appropriate field, yes or no. They remain hidden until you make that selection. So, but that should all really become second nature, because it's very similar to how it was. Follows the structure of the WIFI form itself. So those shouldn't be confusing things at all. And then finally, when you make any changes on your WrapTrack or your demographics page, you'll note that there is a Save button. So you want to just make sure to hit Save so that all of this information gets updated and is saved appropriately. So that's going to be important to note when you're in the Use tab, Demographics, or WrapTrack. So make sure to hit Save. All right, so that's basically it for the Use section of this, and getting the demo information in and making sure the youth is enrolled. And we'll walk through an example of how to actually do that in a minute. But any questions about that before we move on to the forms? Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead and click on that Assessments tab. And again, this is where you're going to find your WIFI, your TOM, whatever forms that you guys use for your organization or configuration. So you click on here, and if you needed to add a form for whatever reason, or you wanted to update a form for a youth that was already enrolled, you could do that here as well. We're going to go ahead. I just want to show you by clicking on the Add button. You can imagine, let's pretend that there weren't any forms here. You click on Add, and then the appropriate forms would pop up that are relating to your community or your configuration. So if you don't do the TOM's not going to show up here. If you don't do the WIFI-EZ, the WIFI-EZ will not show up here. It's just going to be appropriate to your organization. So for this particular configuration, they only use the WIFI. So that's why you'll see those. And you can select whatever one it is and start entering that information. Now what I'm going to do is, just while we're in this use file, I'm going to go ahead and just pretend, and actually let's edit the facilitator form. So click on that, and I know this is probably going to be very small print still, but you click on that, and it opens up in a separate pop-up, and you can see here that some of that information has transferred over, the ID number, or if this was actual first and last name, that would be there. You'd be adding the interview date or today's date. Interview date and today's date are the same thing from Wonders, so just keep that in mind. Start times here, if you had actually updated this after you'd entered it, again, that would be reflected on the form. So all of this, the rest of this should look very similar in terms of administration method drop-down, what's the caregiver's relationship to the youth, and then you would check the appropriate boxes, etc., until you get even down to like who's on your wraparound team, that type of thing. Now here, this may seem intuitive, but here's one place where I do not recommend you hitting Save every time. So if you're in a WIFI form, a WIFI-EZ form, or a TOM form, I would only hit Save if you know that you need to step away from your computer or work on a different task. Otherwise, after you complete one of these tabs, move on to the next tab and then the next one until you get through it. And then hit Save at the end. The reason being because if you're just on this first tab, which is Facilitator Introduction, it's basically like the first 2 pages of the WIFI Facilitator form. If you're in here and you then hit Save, it actually takes you out of the form itself, so it doesn't just save and then allow you to move on to the next page. For whatever reason, it saves it and closes it, and then you have to open it again. So again, I just want to reiterate, for ease of data entry, unless you think you're stepping away from this for an extended amount of time, just continue to kind of move forward with the tabs until you get through all the phases, which these should look pretty similar. It's just the questions, and then you have your drop-down menus, and you can kind of add your actual examples as well by typing those in. So this is all going to be really self-explanatory, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time on it. But at any rate, that should all look very familiar. You can track the feedback, obviously, interviewer observations if there are any, the end time, and then you'd hit Save, and then let's just see if it, yes, this is what I wanted to show you. It pops up, facilitator form details saved successfully. So you will see, especially if you're in Chrome, these little black boxes at the top of the screen will pop up, and they either alert you to an error or they let you know that something was successfully done. So I just wanted to click on save so that you can see that. So this has now been saved, so I'm just going to close it. So that's essentially all that you need to do in order to add a youth and add assessments for them, which are, again, the WIFI or the TOM forms. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead and add an actual test youth. Does anybody have any questions or concerns before we go there?
Can we do an actual TOM entry?
You know, let's see. This particular configuration doesn't use TOM. Let me see if I can log out and get back into that Brad Pitt that I was trying to get into earlier, that test site that we use. Let's see if this will work, because if we can get in there, let's see, I can show you a TOM. Okay, so let's go through this again and see if I can make this work. Sorry, apologies for 1 second. Bear with me, because I would like to do that for you guys. All right, again, let me write that down so I don't forget it. Looks like this worked. All right, so let's try it. Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, so here we go. I can actually show you some TOM stuff now. And let me go ahead and enroll a test youth, and then I'll actually add a TOM to that test youth when we get to the assessments. So does that seem like that'll work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, so a couple of ways to do that. Again, you can go down to your quick links, and you can add a youth record here, or you can hit the menu and go to enrollment and add a new youth record. I'll just do it from here. So I'll click on that button, and this is the first thing that pops up. One thing I want to show you is, for example, like if you were interested in just using the ID numbers, for example, you could do that, and I've just added that ID number, and when I click off of that section, it actually auto-populates that to the first and last name. And that's sort of the little information here below. It just says WRAP ID will be taken as last name and first name if those are not provided. So I'll just leave it for this example. And then you can, select, whatever seems appropriate here. And we'll just really quickly go through this, and I will leave most of the rest of this blank just for this example. But this is how you would enter that data. So you're just going to go ahead and add all this, and then you're going to hit save. Now this box will always pop up after you are adding a new youth record. And pardon me, it says your youth record was added successfully. Would you like to fill out other details for the youth record? You can click yes and continue to fill out those details for this particular youth. Or if you're entering multiple youth at one time, you can click no and then go back and add those details later if you just want to get a lot of youth enrolled or added into the system at one time. But for this, I'm going to go ahead and say yes. And there you go. That youth page is now created because we added that new youth record. All right. And so I'll just draw your attention to some of those things that we were talking about. So here you go. You can see pending is the enrollment status here for this youth. So I will want to make that changing that enrollment status in just 1 second. Additionally, I'll draw your attention. Obviously, yes, the WRAP ID is there. that was populated into the first and last name because I decided I didn't want to add additional information. I'm logged in as Brad Pitt, so you can see that that's when I entered that and on this date. So those are some important things to note. And then I'll go ahead and click on enrollment, and I'll hit add enrollment status. So these would be your steps as to how you would add the information for a new use. And I'm going to click on that section, and then I can actually just say I want today to be the start date. So click on that, and it automatically puts today's date. And I'm going to add them as enrolled. And then I'm going to go down to the organization, and this is our test site configuration. So I'm going to click on that. And again, you may have multiple things that in this drop-down menu, depending on your community. And then I'm going to hit save. And again, it tells me up here, enrollment status added successfully. So everything with that was great, and that's all I needed to do. So I'm going to close out of that section. So now I've got my demographics information. I've made sure that my youth is enrolled, and I'm going to go ahead and click on my WrapTrack tab. And this is where I would say, okay, was the youth in school anytime in the last 30 days? I'm just going to say no, and then I want to click on other, and I'm just going to, blah, blah, blah. And, then I'm going to select NA. And so that's what I would hit there. I'm going to hit save, save to successfully, and all this was saved, so that's great. All right, so now I've added all of that information. I've enrolled them. They're there. We're ready to now enter the fidelity data. So I click on assessments, and we're going to go ahead and do a TOM. So I click on here and select the TOM, and it's just going to think about it for 1 second. And I just want to make sure I answer this question from Mark. Is all the existing data from previous TOMs in the system already? And yes, it is. So all of the data that you would have entered that was originally in Wonders was mapped over to WrapTrack, so that's all there. And that's part of what you're going to be doing quick spot checks on. A little bit later, we're going to talk about those details once we finish entering this and look at reports and exports. But you will be looking at some of your data that was moved over from Wonders to WrapTrack, just to make sure that everything transferred over smoothly and appropriately. And again, I will want to reiterate that April and I did some really extensive testing, so it should be fine, but we'd like you to look at it because no one knows your data like you guys. So, all right. So basically, here we go. Here is a TOM. And so you can enter some of this information. I'm going to, you can either tab. I don't know if you can see, but when I hit tab, the different boxes are highlighting. So you can tab through these things, or you can just simply use, the drop downs, and that's completely fine as well. Actually, I want to go back and let's just put today's date, and we'll do in the home, initial meeting, and then I'm just gonna, and you can basically select who's here, and we can say there were 2 foster parents and 1 facilitator, whatever it is. So you're just going to kind of go through and add this information. And just for this, I'm not really going to put real stuff in here. Okay, so that's your very first page, essentially, of the TOM. When you're looking at the hard copy file that you would have in your hands if you just completed a TOM, that's the first page. So that's all that information right there. We'll go on to part 1. And again, you can hit tab and hit the appropriate thing, and then type in notes if they're there, or you can actually, use the drop down. I'm just going to kind of breeze through this, and stop me, guys, if you have any questions as I'm doing this, but I just want to show you exactly how it goes. And again, I'm not hitting save here because I'm just going to breeze through this as quick as possible. If I were stepping away, then I would hit save. So part 2, and again, you can see, I just want to make sure to point out, though, that in each one of these parts of the TOM, there are 2 items, and obviously then all of their indicators are listed, but each tab up there has 2 items on it. So just to note that the structure and the setup is a little bit different, obviously, than the way Wonders was done. So. All right. we'll kind of just keep doing this. And I won't write any of those notes. Oops, and I just missed one. Now, I'm actually glad I just did that, so I don't know if anyone caught it, but I was tabbing through and I accidentally missed one. And that's one thing that you will note is different in WrapTrack compared to Wonders. And we are actually working with the programmers to make that change for our next iteration of this, which hopefully won't be too long from now. But until that occurs, please note that when you're entering Wi-Fi data or TOM data, it's not the case for the Wi-Fi EZ. We're not sure why they were able to program that in, but they did not do that for the Wi-Fi 4 or the TOM. But for those two, you're going to have to just kind of eyeball it and make sure that you're seeing that you're actually entering the appropriate information. Because let's just do an example. I'll leave the last one blank, and it will allow me to move on. So just kind of note that, because that's going to be important so that you don't miss any data when you're entering it. And let's just finish this up here. Oops, again, I did that accidentally. And okay, and so then here's the notes, whatever it is. And I'll just say that was roughly, an hour's length of time. And I'm going to hit save now. And that's the TOM. So that's basically all you do. But again, just extra eyes on the data entry until you're comfortable with it again, or what have you, because you could potentially skip an indicator when you're answering that and leave it blank accidentally, and the system currently will not alert you to that. So that's, again, something we're changing, but it currently is how it is set up. All right, so any questions about the TOM, concerns about the TOM?
I had one question.
Okay.
With the school information.
Yes.
I don't believe that was on the other one, and I don't know. I don't believe our data entry person would have that information at hand. But that's a new piece that was added.
Do you mean this tab here, this school information part?
Yes.
Yeah, so if you weren't collecting that information on a demo form or something like that, then you don't have to enter this information. You can leave it blank. So if that's not something that you want to collect or were collecting ever, you don't have to enter it. So if you're enrolling a youth like we were doing earlier, and you've got all this information added, you've changed their enrollment from pending to enrolled, you can then go ahead and move right on to the assessments if you don't collect this school information. But if you do, I would recommend adding that before you go to the assessments.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can leave it blank, certainly.
All right, thank you.
Sure. All right, so that's data entry in a nutshell. Let's go ahead. Yes?
Could you show us how, maybe you're going to do that next, but I just wanted to see how this is Janice from Kentucky, just wanted to see how you do the reports for the TOM as well.
Absolutely, yeah, we're going to do reports. I did just have a thought, though, about wanting to show the Wi-Fi really quickly. I'm not going to enter any data, but I just want to show you what it looks like in here again, just for folks to see. But yeah, we're going to go right into the reports, and I'll show the Wi-Fi and TOM, and then we'll do exporting as well. So again, this is just very easy in terms of how you would be entering the Wi-Fi data if that's something that you guys collect. Fairly straightforward, looks just like the hard copy form. Shouldn't be very complicated for the Wi-Fi or the TOM here in terms of data entry. So it just visually looks a little bit different, and it'll take a second to get used to, and I can be honest in terms of saying that even when I opened it up, the first couple times looking at it this way, I got so used to Wonders, I was like, oh gosh. But this is, it's such an advanced system in comparison to Wonders, so we're really thrilled with it. Okay, so I'm just going to click on the Home button just for the purposes of getting out of that example use. But let's go ahead and do that, that reporting and exporting now. I'll start with the TOM. As we had that request, and then we'll move forward with the WIFI very quickly, and then we'll go to exports. So here's what I was talking about earlier, and it might have not made sense because we weren't visually making the example, but here's what we would do, again, if you're ready to pull a TOM report. So I'm just going to say that I want to look at the fidelity report, so I'm going to click on that. And then you enter your qualifiers, whereas in Wonders it was a little bit different. You did this step first, and then it generated all your reports out with those qualifiers already there. But this is a little bit different, so I'll show you exactly how you would do this. You can pull it by sort of user or organization. I'm just going to click on all organizations. This is our test information, so we'll just try to get as much information in there as we can. There's obviously very limited data, so keep that in mind when these reports are generated. So it obviously tells me these are the sites within my organization because I clicked on all, and it's already selected, so I'm just going to hit continue. Then this additional pop-up box comes up, and if I were to select the range of dates, again, this would be very easy in terms of just picking the range I'm interested in. Let's go ahead and leave that, though, blank for now because I just want to select all data. Again, there's very limited data in here, test data, so that's why. This should look the same. You can pick the first or most recent assessment or the mean. I'm going to do the mean. And here's the button that I was mentioning that might have been tricky to visualize initially when we were in the PowerPoint. But the keep qualification is what it's called. And you want to select this if, for example, the way that we just added these qualifiers for this particular report, if I wanted to keep them for all of the TOM reports and use that same type of qualifications, this would be the selection I would make. Keep qualification button, and then I would just hit continue. And so what it'll look like, I'll show you. We'll pull up this report. We'll take a look at it, pardon me, and then we'll pull up another report, and I'll show you what it looks like then when it asks you whether or not you want to keep the qualifications you were originally using. All right, so for the reports and the exports, we really are going to recommend that you look at them by actually getting them into Excel or Word or a PDF even, which is a nice new option, which we love, instead of looking at them on this screen because it is a bit of a limited view. So that would be something to kind of keep in mind. But this looks different, much different than Wonders. And I'll draw your attention to the top, though, because you can see that there's a drop-down box here. Now, some reports for the TOM for the WIFI will have these at the top because there are multiple reports embedded in one now. So I'm looking at, you can see, I'm looking at the TOM report 3A, which is overall fidelity. And I'm looking at this for our test configuration site. It tells you which site you're looking at. And then I'm looking at all organizations, and then I'm looking at the mean. No date range, and then this is the date that we've selected it for. And obviously, again, WrapTrack is here. So that's sort of what you want to look at, just to make sure that it pulled it right. There shouldn't be any concerns, though. So that then reports out, and it's generated that way. Now, another new thing, it would be if you had multiple pages to this report, it would be up here, and it would say 1 of 2 or 1 of 3 or what have you, and then you could actually select these arrows that say next page. So that's another reason why it might be easier to push it into PDF or something to look at these. But what I want to do is go ahead and I'll click on Fidelity by Principle and hit Show because I want to just show you how that looks since these two things are embedded in the same section. And so basically, it just generates that same thing. And I'm going to go ahead and open a PDF here, but I do want to show you this refresh button is what this says right next to the PDF or the export feature. And this is great because, let's just say, for example, because some organizations or configurations are set up where there may be only 1 or 2 logins and multiple people use those. That's still completely fine if you'd like to structure it that way, or we can obviously change it however makes sense for your community now when using WrapTrack. However, let's say that there are multiple people in at one time under one login. You'd want to hit the refresh button because someone might be entering data and you might be in the reports, and then you'd be able to access that real-time data by hitting refresh. So that's what that looks like. And then let's go ahead and do that. Let's export this. And because I'm in Chrome, it's either going to pop up down here and have me open it up, or there might be a little weird box over here that pops up, so we'll just wait for it to think about it. Okay, so yeah, so it's at the bottom here. And there it is. It just, pushes it into a PDF document, and it's just visually a little bit more appealing, we think, than sort of the way it was structured in Wonders. So we're happy with the way these are looking. There's not a lot of changes, but some updates for sure. So there's that information. And I'm going to close back out of these here because I want to now click on another report. Let's just go to the summary of open-ended comments. Great, and see here is the thing I was mentioning with when I kept the qualifications, I selected that checkbox, and now asks me, now that I've gone to a different report, do you want your existing selections? And again, if you're doing that type of reporting maybe for a yearly report or something, you probably will want to say yes and look at those qualifications for all 6 TOM reports. So we'll just hit yes. And there's, again, very limited data. That was something that I entered today. It's the gobbledygook. But, obviously this information is there. So that's how you would pull for your TOM reports. I would like to go ahead and look at the WIFI reports now. So let's move on to that. We won't spend a ton of time on it because, again, it's the same type of information. It's going to look similar, but, let me close out. I just want to make a point, though, that, and you could see this with the TOM as well, that there are some of the reports that got condensed into one, and those will be pretty apparent, I think. But that's why the reports, the number of them seems smaller, is because we combined some. So let's click on the overall one, and again, we'll do all organizations. We'll hit continue. And we'll do the mean. And I'm not going to keep the qualification this time because we're just going to look at this one report. So we'll hit continue. All right, and again, here we go. Here's all this information. So that is that section for this particular WIFI report. And again, if I wanted to look at it by respondent, for example, and then I could even say, okay, I want to get rid of the youth one and the team member, only look at the facilitator and caregiver, and then you'd hit show, and that part would pop up. And same type of features here. You could export it, however way you want to look at it. But that's fairly easy, and obviously when you export these things, they're easy to save, so you can just save them right there. And then, if you export it into Word or Excel, it's easy to pull the certain sections out and put them into your own report if you're doing something like that. Or if you just want to bring it to a meeting, you might put it into a PDF and then print those out, however works for you guys. So that's reports. Anybody have questions? I do want to move on to the export feature before we start to lose too much time, but any questions about reporting? Okay, great. Yeah, it's fairly straightforward and easy to navigate. But all right, so exporting now. So you can do a single use. That's the selected checkbox here. And I don't know why that just did that, but you can select a single use and then insert their name or their WRAP ID and search for them if you're simply wanting to just look at data for that one use. Or for this, we're just going to hit multiple use, and then I'm going to select that I want to look at. May not have any data in this. Oh yeah, okay, so we have one use of data for the facilitator form, but I'm just going to select that. And then if there were multiple folks that were here, let's say 5 more people or what have you, if I selected all, this, you might not be able to see this, but it says select all or none. you can hit that, and then all of the checkboxes would be selected. Or if you hit none, then none of them are. Or you can click on them individually, and select who out of the list of multiple use with a facilitator form that you would want to look at in terms of exporting their data. So for this, obviously, we're just going to select this one person. Then we're going to go down and we're going to look at our filters. So once you've decided what data you want to export, then you're going to filter it. And the content here, and these three, content, format, and scope, are all required fields. So you have to do something in them. So content, for example, is whether or not you want to just look at the numeric values or the text values or both. I'm going to click on both because I want to show you what that looks like. But if you're doing some additional analyses with these raw data exports, you might just want to be looking at the numeric. And then the format, you can do it in a comma-separated or a spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet. That's what we're going to do here. And then for the scope, finally, you can select all of the data for that individual by the year or the month or specific dates. And I'm just click on that because I want to show you that, obviously I could hit month and nothing happens over here with these grayed out boxes. But as soon as I hit specific dates, the from and the to open up, and now I can choose, a certain date range. So if you want to, do it by the fiscal year or something, if that's one way that you need to export data, that would be certainly an option. For this, though, I'm going to select all because, again, very limited data in here. And then if you wanted to, so like let's just say that you want to take this export again with you to a meeting and you don't want youth names or date of birth or other identifying information, you can select this checkbox to remove identifying information here. And then that won't show up in your export. I'm not going to do that for now, and we're just going to go ahead and hit preview. So that's the next step. I made all my selections, and I'm ready to look at the data that I want to see. So hit preview output. And then, again, this is really a small screen, hard to see it this way, so we recommend either, saving it, or you can even email this to somebody. So let's say that, you're a facilitator and you want to export something and send it to your supervisor. That's certainly an option if you have those permissions to do that. And I'll click on it. I just want to show you what the format looks like. It's kind of a great little thing, but you can select who it's to, your subject, put in some text here, whatever it is. And I'm not going to hit send email, but you could just send that, and then the Excel file for what we just pulled would be sent right to whoever we were sending it to. But I want to go back and go ahead and actually save this to Excel. So I'm going to click on Save File. And here we go. Here's an example of where it just pushes it off to the top here. But I'll open that up. And then here we go. Here's the information that I wanted to pull. And it's just a little bit cleaner than the way it originally would export. It looks nicer. It's easier to understand. One of the things I do want to just draw your attention to, though, is for the WIFI and for the TOM, this is going to look a little bit different, would be the actual value labels here are different. So like you remember, obviously, for the WIFI, that the first question in the engagement phase, it would be 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, etc. This way it's set up a little bit differently. So this is actually the engagement phase, question 1, and then this is the numeric value of that question and the text value because I selected both. And again, you may only want to look at the numeric if you're doing some additional analyses with this data. But just to keep in mind that that looks a little bit different. Same thing for the TOM. But again, when we do get those manuals finalized, there will be a data dictionary in there as well, so that if you find that that's challenging to navigate through those new value labels, we will have the data dictionary that will help make that a little bit more simplified. So I'm going to go ahead and close out of that, and that's data reporting and exporting. Any thoughts or questions or concerns? Fantastic. So what I want to do is I'm going to log out of here, and I want to bring up our PowerPoint one more time so we can talk about a little bit more about these testing details and strategies. And then I'm going to pull up another Excel file where you're going to kind of start to document some of these things, that if you see any errors in your data or something like that. So we'll get into those details now, and then we're almost done. We're probably 5 minutes away from being done. So, all right. So basically, here's what we recommend. Before you start entering, please make sure that you do a quick check. And again, this is a spot check. We are not asking you to go through every single youth file and check every piece of data that's connected with that. But what we would recommend you doing is, taking a % of the youth that you have in WrapTrack currently, and maybe using their hard copy files to actually make sure that the demographic information, name, date of birth, ethnicity, those kinds of things actually match up and make sense for each youth. And then additionally do the forms that are listed under the youth name. Are they correct? Are those things showing up correctly without any errors? I'm going to go ahead and ask you right now for the purposes of this to really keep in mind that when you when you're looking at the reporting and exporting, to bear in mind that the information in Wonders at the very tail end was slowly becoming less and less accurate because of all the errors that were popping up in the system. So if you were looking at a report that you might have pulled, at the very beginning of, December or something, or middle of December, excuse me, and comparing that to WrapTrack, they may not align exactly correctly. So just keep that in mind. And then additionally, this little section, and I should highlight this or something, but the Wonder staging site is not currently possible to actually use. For a little while, our programmers had set up a staging site where if you wanted to check it against what you had in Wonders, that would be something you could do, and you could log in to that URL with your same Wonders username and password. But it's actually down at the moment, and we're trying to figure out why. So that's why I say when you're doing some of these spot checking, really I would recommend just grabbing the actual file and just going through it and just again, just quickly kind of going through that. And this might be that you have 1 or 2 people designated to do some of this really quick spot checking and get it done in a day or 2 or something like that. Or you might decide that you want to spread this burden across a few people or what have you, and get it done even quicker, or take a week to do it. It's entirely up to you guys. But again, hopefully you're not even going to see any errors, and it shouldn't be a problem. But we do want your feedback on that just in case. And then once you feel confident that your data is in there and accurately in there, then you certainly can start entering new youth. So that's going to be important to do. But all right, so a couple things to remember. So not every form might have transferred if those demographic forms weren't filled out. So that's important to note. So your ends might be a little different than they were in Wonders if you didn't have a demographic form. Report totals, again, like I said, might not match exactly because there were certainly some issues in Wonders. And the final thing to kind of keep in mind when you're doing this is that it is permissions-based. This new system is heavily permissions-based. So if for whatever reason you can't access something or what have you, check in with your site administrators or local heads first. But then they might come directly to April or to myself, or if you feel like it's something that that you should directly communicate with us about, feel free to do so. But let's get it figured out sooner rather than later so that we can get you all in there and ready to use the system as soon as possible. All right, and so then let's talk about time frame and next steps here. So basically, we have until the 10th of March to make sure that we let our programmers know if there were any data mapping errors. So if you do experience any errors, I'm going to show you a form that you're going to complete in terms of providing that feedback to us, and then we send it to the programmers. So you're going to use an Excel file to be able to report those errors, and then you'll send them to us. So you can always call with any questions or concerns as well. But really, you might really focus on getting this done prior to then, but you have until March 10th in order to report this information to us. But you might want to get it done and get some new data in there as well. So keep that in mind. And let me go ahead and open that document up. So it's just an Excel document, and really, these first columns here that are have a gray tone to them, that's the section that you guys are going to be filling out. Okay, and basically it's really simple. You're just going to put in the first column sort of where you saw an issue or an error, if there are any. For example, if you're in you're exporting TOM data, you would put that there. Or if you're in a caregiver wiki form, you'd put that there. Or if you're in the demo page, that's where you would indicate this. Next column is then indicating who it is that is the tester and their organization. So for me, this is Hattie, the word team. But you would put that information there. The next column to the right is where you would include your login and your password. And again, I can't express how critical that is to now share with us because we don't have access to that information anymore. So you're going to need to make sure to share that so that we can create the same issue or error that you're seeing and just make sure that everything is working correctly, or if we need to talk to the programmers in more detail about it, that will allow us to do so that we can log in as you and find that error. The next column is really relating to the type of issue that you might see. So for example, a bug, which is highlighted here, is like when I hit export and the TOM export, it gives me an error message. So basically, a bug is you can't move forward with that issue in the system. It doesn't allow you to move to the next step, essentially. So that would be like a bug. And those are really going to be the number one critical one. So that's what we're looking for as well. Not just, did the data map over, but are you finding bugs where it doesn't allow you to move forward? The second type of issue you might come across is an edit. So for example, this is a great example that April included here is the word wraparound was misspelled, and the change that we want to make here is to correct the spelling to wraparound. So that's an edit because it's not a bug. It doesn't prevent you from moving forward. You can still function in the system as normal, but we need to make that change. So if you're seeing anything like that at all, you would want to make sure to indicate that on this form. And then finally, new development. And so that's really going to be like, if you have a great idea for the system and it's not currently in there, you can certainly let us know in this way. And we're very open to accepting new ideas to always improve, because we want to continue to make this system, better and better and better as we go. So please include any new development ideas if you have any, but you may not, so that's all right as well. I mean, ideally, hopefully, you won't have to complete this form at all, and you can just send us an email notification saying everything looks great, we're good, we're going to start entering new data. However, if you do come across any of these issues, you're going to want to make sure that this gets filled out, and you're going to put what the issue is and what you think should be changed with it. And then additionally, at any time, if you can include a screenshot, and I'll just expand this so you guys can see, but for example, this individual included a screenshot here for a particular area. That is going to be extremely helpful for us and for the programmers, because then they are able to expand that and know exactly where you were in the system and what the error was. So it just helps them out a little bit more. All right, so if you're filling this form out, just make sure that these first 4 lines or rows are removed prior to you starting to add your actual feedback. And then you'll send it to us, rapeval at uw.edu, and April and I will take care of it and make sure it gets corrected by our programmers. So if there are any questions as you go through that process as well, just let us know. But that is basically the grand spiel there. So any questions or concerns before we all sign off here?
Hi, this is Susan Robinson from the North Key region. We were never signed on to Wonders to begin with, so we don't have passwords for that. Our username and passwords. How would we get those?
So basically, we will work with your local admin to get you set up as new users in the system. And Mark, that might be you. I'm not sure. We'll have to talk about that maybe following this webinar. So maybe we can email about that as to who is going to be the person that will set you guys up. But yeah, we'll get you all in there with new as a new user.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Debbie in Lexington with Mike, and I just had a question. Will we have an icon that we can click on? We missed that first part, so.
Oh, you mean to get to the site?
Yes.
Yes, so when I send the PowerPoint out and the recording of this as well, the page, slide 10, excuse me, of the PowerPoint, I'll just go right, where is it? I'll go right back to it really quickly here. This is the URL or the website to get to the home page or the login page of WrapTrack, which is under the Team Monitoring Made System platform. Team Monitoring Made Simple platform, excuse me. So this is what you would select, this URL at the top here, and then you'd log in that way.
Oh, okay.
And again, that's slide 10 of the PowerPoint.
Okay.
All right. Sure. Anybody else have questions? Or let's see. I'm gonna just kind of look to the chat box here and see if there are any questions. We will have. Great. Yep. Mark has indicated that there will be logins and passwords assigned for all Kentucky folks. So not to worry about that. We'll work on that. So yeah, I think that sounds great. So again, if those local heads need to communicate to me about any other questions or concerns, we'll walk through with you all in terms of the admin piece of this, where assigning permissions needs to come into play, or maybe changing those permissions that might already be there, getting new users on board with logins and passwords, etc. So we'll work to get that all ready. Last call for questions. Great. Well, thanks, everybody. I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.